It begins not in light, but in hunger. You remember waking beneath the ceiling of meat and marble, where the veins of the living earth pulsed with a rhythm older than suns. Your breath was not your onnet, was the whisper of something submerged in the centuries, and as your hand moved across the stone, it was warm, as if the rock remembered blood. This is not a planet you were born to. It is one that called you Korriban. You have wandered the dust for days, but the temple only reveals itself to those who come hallowed. You arrive not as a seeker, but as an offering. The sand recognizes your doubt. The wind mocks your spine. The sky watches like a broken Iand. Still you walk deeper. You pass obelisks, etched in a language that eats itself. No translation remains, only the sound of grief turned into script. The wind carries syllables, shaped like wounds. The stones do not stand, they loom. And then, the doorway, a gash in the desert, lined not with stone, but bone. Ivory, fused to iron, grins at you from its arch. You hesitate, the air changes, it thickens, as if time itself breathes heavy here. You cross the threshold, the sound dies instantly. What follows is not silence, but memory echoes, so ancient they do not speak in words, but in urges, hunger, power, separation. You feel the presence of the old flesh, those who became Sith, not by name, but by transfiguration. You feel them not as spirits, but as walls, columns, roots of the very architecture. The temple is alive, not in metaphor. Its ceiling twitches in rhythm. Veins of ichor pulse behind translucent stone. You descend past murals that do not depict, but bleed. Images shift when you look too long. One moment, a warrior crowned in fire. The next, a child nursing envoy. It is here that the truth begins to breathe, long before the Sith Lords of the Stars, before Bane, before Revan, before the great civil wars and the rule of two. There were the first dwellers. The Yorsith, not a species, not a religion, but a forgetting. They were not born into darkness. They discovered that light was the illusion. The murals moan beneath your fingertips. You touch one, it hums like bone beneath skin. A glyph shines, briefly, then burns away. The air fills with the smell of ash and something older, wet soil, animal breath, a newborn's cry. You fall forward into vision. There was once a planet, not named in any archive, lost in the folds of gravitational war. A jungle of red trees, a sun that never moved. There, the first Sith were not born, they were made. Through the rite of burrowing, you see it. The initiate, naked, beneath a canopy of screaming stars, lies on a slab. The elder leans close, not to whisper, but to breathe memory into the open mouth. Through the inhalation, the soul becomes a scroll. They tear it gently, piece by piece, page by page, until what remains is an emptiness filled only with will. You shudder. Your breath returns. The hallway before you narrows into something more intimate, womb-like. You walk bent. The stone here glows faintly red, as if blushing. You feel watched, not by eyes, but by decisions. Every corner drips history like sap. You pass a chamber, whose walls are teeth. Another that chants without sound. And then a sanctum, the heart. Inside, a throne, not carved, but grown. Rib-like curves emerge from the floor, forming a seat lined with petrified nerves. Upon it, nothing, but the room is full. You fall to your knees, not from reverence, but gravity, the weight of memory. You hear whispers like roots drinking blood. You see shadows with no source. You smell thunder, and you begin to remember. You once wore a different skin. You had another name. You knelt here before. You offered your tongue, and they gave you a new one. You offered your eyes, and they showed you what truly was. You gave your name, they took it with gratitude. The temple keeps what you abandon. A wall to your right splits open, revealing a stair that descends without end. No torches, no markings, just the sound of your heartbeat slowing. You step forward and begin the descent. Each step feels softer. You are not walking downward, you are being swallowed, and the stone begins to whisper back, not in Sith, not in basic, not in sound, in sensation. Your skin begins to itch with old sentences. Your veins tingle with dead verbs. The marrow in your bones starts to remember languages never spoken aloud. You are not gaining knowledge. You are shedding everything that kept you from knowing. The stair ends in darkness. The floor here is not made of stone. It is flesh, not metaphorical, not symbolic. You kneel and place your hand upon it. It trembles. This is where the Sith fed. You do not eat with the mouth. You feed with memory. You offer a moment of betrayal, a wound so potent it burns in your soul. The floor drinks it like wine and gives you something in return. A single vision, a red star, weeping black. Orbiting it, a world of screams. And on that world, a citadel shaped like a throat. You are drawn to it. You see its doors open. You smell yourself dying. You wake, still in the temple. Still on Korriban, but different. Your eyes no longer see surface. Your skin feels through time. Your blood carries names, not yours. And you hear a voice, not in your ears, but in your ribs. We have always been with you. You do not turn. There is no direction here. You only kneel and listen to the stone, to the flesh, to the truth. Beneath your forgetting, you do not remember standing, but you are already walking. The temple does not echo your footsteps, absorbs them as if sound were a trespass. The air thickens with each breath, not like fog or dust, but like remembrance. It clings to your lungs and makes each inhale a reclamation. Here, in this breathing tomb, the past does not sleep, it coils, watching you through folds of your own memory. You reach the Hall of Ascension, though no sign tells you so. The architecture has changed. Now it curves inward, intimate and enclosing, as if the very stones wish to whisper. This was once the chamber of rites, not celebration, but shedding. You step over grooves in the floor, worn not by passage, but by kneeling, not by pilgrimage, but by surrender. There is no altar, only an indentation in the center of the chamber, shaped like an open palm, carved into obsidian, wide enough for a body. This was the crucible of becoming. They would lay the initiate here and bury them alive in sound. Not screams, not music, but a harmonic chant woven from the bones of extinct beasts and the last breaths of dying stars. You remember now how the sound peeled away the mind like wet bark, how the bones of the initiate would crack, not from force, but from revelation. The soul was broken open to make space for something older to root. You lie down, as you once did, and the stone remembers your shape. The chant begins, not with noise, but with the cessation of everything else. You hear your heartbeat for the first time since arriving. and beneath it, another slower, deeper, as if the temple itself breathes in tandem with you. You close your eyes, and the blackness behind them begins to bleed red. You see the old world again, not through vision, but absorption. The Sith did not worship the Force, they dissected it. To them, the Force was not dual. It was a river, too vast for one name. They named its shadows not dark, but deep. They saw its will as a wound from which all life bled. They fed on it, yes, but not as parasites. They became it. They found in suffering a sacrament, in agony a scripture. The pain was not punishment, it was permission. You see one of them now, a priest of the marrow order skin, lined with ash, eyes like extinguished moons. His voice breaks the air like old cloth. He speaks not to others, but to a creature within his own skull, and the creature answers. His limbs twitch with memory, not his own. He walks in loops, ritual paths carved through time, and with each circle the world shifts. Reality peels. He teaches you without speaking. You begin to mimic the path with your breath. Inhale betrayal, exhale truth. Inhale submission, exhale power. And now the ground beneath you opens again, not physically, but within the folds of your knowing. You fall inward, not down, a spiral of sensation, memory, and myth. You pass through layers of yourself you forgot to bury. And there, embedded in your spine, you find it, the word that cuts. You do not speak it, for it is not made for air, but it writhes in your blood, etches itself into your marrow, and coils in your fingertips. You touch the stone beside you, and it splits not in damage, but in obedience. This is not force. This is something beneath force. This is will shaped into law. You rise. Now the temple parts before you, like ribs opening for breath. Corridors emerge. Chambers shift. Glyphs that once hid now burn softly like sleeping eyes. You are not navigating the structure. You are remembering your own architecture. Every twist and turn corresponds to something you once were. A new door opens. This one is different, not grown, but carved. The edges shimmer slightly, as if resisting the present. You step through the chamber of echoes. Here, every surface is mirror dark and wet, as if dipped in sorrow. Shapes flicker. You see versions of yourself, wounded, triumphant, weeping, consumed, each one bearing a different Sith name, each one echoing a history that might have been. These are not illusions. They are fractures. The temple shows you not who you are, but who you could have become had your betrayals twisted differently. You watch yourself crowned in fire, loved by thousands, then assassinated by a student. You watch yourself alone in a library of living, skin whispering secrets to the unborn. You see your body crucified on a sun spear for rewriting prophecy. And you begin to understand. The Sith were not one lineage. The Sith believed in evolution through abandonment. Every act of power was a form of forgetting. To gain, you had to sever. To rise, you had to dissolve. They did not worship gods. They dissolved them in vats of perception and drank their remains. You walk further. The mirrors now shifting faster. You see wars forgotten by time, empires made of silence, planets carved into instruments of grief. You witness a gathering, the 12, who wore no names, their faces obscured by writhing ink, their bodies made of ritual. They stood at the edge of time and did not speak, only pointed toward a star that bled into itself. You remembered their promise. You remember your place among them. You reach the center of the chamber, and the mirrors shatter, not from violence, but recognition. The pieces do not fall, they float, each shard holding a memory, no longer yours to forget. You touch one, and you remember the first lie you told yourself. I am separate, and then the second. I am sovereign, and finally the third. There is an end. The temple does not laugh, it exhales, and the breath moves through you like a tide returning to a shore that had forgotten the sea. You fall to your knees again, not in reverence, but in reunion. There is no hierarchy here, no master, no apprentice, only echoes, learning to sing with new mouths. You remain still, and in the silence, the temple tells you a story of the first blade, not forged, but grown from a lover's rib, of the womb star, whose birth scream cracked 100 moons, of the crimson tear, a scroll written in time and inked with extinction. Each tale folds into the next, forming a tapestry of hunger, sacrifice, and rebirth. The Sith did not fear death. They feared stagnation. Death was only the stillness before the next forgetting. And so they bled, burned, betrayed, and rose. You close your eyes and feel the stories stitching into your bones. And when you open them, the chamber is gone. You stand once more before the throne, the one of ribs and petrified nerves. But now someone sits upon it. You do not see their face. You see your own shadows layered upon themselves. 1,000 versions of who you were, who you became, and who you will never be, woven into a throne of choice. The figure raises a hand, not in greeting. In echo, you raise yours, and everything stills. The temple breathes once and waits. You do not feel the transition, but the moment you lower your hand, the throne vanishes. Not as if it had never been, but as if it had only ever been memory. You remain alone now, though the walls still pulse with presence. The temple has grown quiet, not in absence, but in fulfillment. It has given you its burden, and now it waits to see if you can carry it. The corridors shift again, no longer twisted in misdirection. They open straight ahead, revealing a path sculpted of blackened bone, threaded with veins of gold that beat with slow, deliberate cadence. You walk slowly, not out of caution, but reverence. You have seen the root of the Sithno, become it tanned. Now, the temple prepares you for the final knowing, not history, but purpose. The corridor ends at a circular chamber, shaped like a hollowed planet. Its ceiling curves in constellation, though no stars above mirror them. These are stars that no longer exist, etched in ash and forgotten coordinates. At the center stands a pedestal, and upon it, a heart. Not symbolic, not sculpted. A real heart, pulsating gently within a cage of silence. Its arteries reach into the walls, feeding the temple. You approach. This is not a relic. It is the heart of the temple, the last remnant of the flesh sovereign, the being who once ruled the first convergence of Sith. They were not ruler by decree, nor master by right. They were chosen by the temple itself, consumed and reborn as its living will. Their body became architecture, their mind scripture, and this heart their memory. You extend your hand, not in command, but communion. When you touch it, time melts. You fall into a vision more complete than anything the mirrors could show. A memory not from the past, but from the space between beginnings. You stand on a field of ash, beneath a sky of black fire. Around you, titans clash not of flesh, but of idea. The first schism is unfolding. The Sith have fractured, not over power, but philosophy. Some believe the flesh sovereign must be preserved as the unbroken spine of their evolution. Others say evolution requires murder that to rise higher, even gods must bleed. You witness the battle of unmaking, where thought became blade and will reshaped physics, where names were weaponized and each uttered syllable of betrayal created a crater in reality. The temple watched from beneath, swallowing the dead into its veins, waiting for a new voice to name it again. And then silence. The flesh sovereign is slain by their own lover, who whispers, "Become many," before tearing the sovereign's face from time. The temple screamed not in agony, but in ecstasy. It fed on the dissolution. It grew. The vision breaks, and you find yourself kneeling again. The heart beats slower. A final glyph burns into the pedestal beside you. A choice, not written in language, but in ache. You understand. You may leave. Return to the galaxy. Walk its corridors of empire and rebellion, light and dark. Bear what you've learned as burden, weapon, or whisper. Let the knowledge rot you gently, or you may remain. Let the temple consume you. Feed it your name, your memories, your separateness. Become structure, become myth, become the voice for those who will come long after memory has died. You hesitate, not out of fear, but fullness. For the first time, the hunger is quiet. You have seen the depth beyond doctrine, the root beneath rage. The Sith were not evil. They were flame offered to stillness. They burned to know, and in knowing, they dissolved. You rise. The heart pulses once more slower. Now satisfied, you leave the chamber. The path behind has vanished, and the sky above opens. You walk toward the surface, though you do not climb. The temple rises with you, lifting you like breath through a throat. The walls grow fainter, the shadows softer. The scent of blood gives way to dust. You emerge, though you were never gone. The desert is still. Stars hang above like patient scars. And though you hear nothing, something whispers, you are no longer seeker. You are seed. You do not speak, you walk. The sand does not resist you. The wind feels gentle now, as if recognizing something ancient in your stride. The obelisks no longer loom, they bow, faintly, imperceptibly, to the presence that walks among them. You reach the ridge, overlooking the valley of forgotten tombs. Below, thousands of sealed chambers sleep beneath stone, each holding truths even this temple dared not absorb. But you do not descend. You simply watch and understand. The Sith are not dead. They are changing. Each betrayal, each rise, each fall is a breath in the lungs of something still being born. They are not a people, not a religion. They are what remains when you carve away fear and worship. They are the will to become. You lower your gaze to your hands. They are your onand, not your veins hum softly. You carry a temple now within. You walk away, knowing the path behind will vanish. The temple will forget your face, and no one will speak of what you've seen. And still, you smile, because the wind hums your name differently now, and the stars blink slower, as if listening. You awaken not in a place, but a rhythm, a throb beneath your tongue, pulsing through the bones of your face, as though the galaxy itself chants in silence. You do not recall arriving, but you feel the weight of long passage. The sky above is not sky, is obsidian, stretched thin over a realm forgotten by light. No stars, no moon, only a vast ceiling of black glass that reflects nothing, yet listens to everything. This is Varna Keshta, eclipse-shrouded moon that vanished from all star charts when the Sith sought to hide their sacred transmutations. Here, rituals were not performed, they were lived. The ground itself is etched with rites, spirals burned into ash and soot. You step into one and feel the air tighten. You exhale, and the spiral responds, shifting slightly under your feet. This is not stone, this is memory, pressed into shape. A voice reaches you not through air, but through nerve. It does not speak in words, it utters temperature. You feel it first behind your eyes, then in your molars. A command made of warmth and decay, you follow. The land of Varna Kesh stretches outward like a field of bones, smoothed by wind. Mountains rise in jagged lines, as though torn from flesh rather than earth. You walk among monoliths cracked by lightning that never fell, their surfaces alive with symbols that twist when stared at. The deeper you go, the more the world rearranges. Gravity bows and reforms, angles breathe. You understand. This place is not cursed. It is remembering how to dream. You pass through the gate of tongueless sleep, where initiates once buried their voices to become vessels. A shallow pit lies before it, filled with severed tongues turned to glass. You do not flinch. You kneel. You feel your own tongue ache. But this place does not require your silence, only your willingness. Ahead, a stairway carved into the side of a massive obsidian slab descends, not downward, but inward. You place your hand on the first step, and it reads you. Your pain, your treason, your secret triumphs whispered into pillows. It accepts your weight and begins to sink, lowering you into the ritual core. As you descend, echoes surface. You begin to hear songs not sung aloud for thousands of years, droning layered tones that vibrate through flesh, guiding the bones to remember. The passage narrows until it wraps around you like a coffin built for thought. There is no torchlight, no guidance, only pulse. Then, a chamber, circular, carved from a single seamless wall of black stone, floating. At its center is a ring of flesh, not alive, but not dead. Within it, suspended, a single tear, glistening violet, held aloft by intention. This is the rite of distillation, where Sith acolytes surrendered all memory of kindness to shape their essence into utility. You are not here to witness it. You are here to undergo it. You step forward. The ring tightens. The chamber breathes. The tear trembles. Your chest aches, not from fear, from pressure. The memory is surfacing, a moment long buried, the one you swore never to revisit. It comes now like a tide pulled by a second moon. You see yourself, young, hopeful, believing in redemption, a face you loved, a promise you broke, the scream you walked away from. The chamber absorbs it, all sorrow and silence, and the tear shifts. You reach out, not with your hand, but your willingness. The tear bursts not into rain, but into language. You are soaked in glyphs, invisible but burning. They slide beneath your skin, curling around tendons, threading through your breath. The chamber darkens, not from shadow, from acknowledgement. You have been named by the ritual. You will not leave unchanged. You move onward. A narrow corridor twists like a spine, lined with alcoves, each containing a mask. Some weep, some burn. One hums with your heartbeat. You do not wear one. You do not yet deserve one. The masks belong to the bound, those who survived the second eclipse, when the Force itself recoiled from what the Sith became. The path ends at a wide chasm. Across it, a figure waits, cloaked in robes made of silence, its face obscured by a veil of shifting static. Between you, a narrow bridge woven from the hair of the executed. You step onto it, and it groans, not from your weight, but from your truth. Each step demands a confession, not aloud, but inward. The moment you watched a friend fall and chose not to save them. The day you poisoned someone with your silence. The instant you realized you loved power more than justice. Each truth is a stone laid behind you. The bridge holds. You reach the figure. It does not speak. It extends a hand, not to greet, but to reflect. You touch its hand in that instant. See every ritual ever carved into Varnak Kesh, the ritual of bleeding stars, where children were fed lies until their minds birthed new truths. The rite of reversal, where masters became apprentices for a single heartbeat and were judged for every failure they'd inflicted. The ceremony of the endless breath, where a single inhale lasted 5 years and the exhale burned half a forest. You see them all. You remember them all. You fall to your knees. The figure does not vanish. It kneels beside you. You do not know its face, but you know its name. It is yours, waiting. Not the name you speak, the one beneath, the one that predates titles. It whispers, and your bones echo the syllable. You rise, the figure dissolves into dust, and the path forward opens not as a hallway, but as a question. You step into it, not to answer, but to become one. The question you stepped into does not ask with words. It unfolds with scent and vibration. It tastes of copper and quiet grief. This is the deeping path, a route not charted by geography, but by the degree to which you can unmake yourself. The walls now ripple slightly as you pass, as though the temple is not built of stone, but of folded decisions. Here, the Sith did not teach here. They unraveled, not the Force, not philosophy, themselves. The ground becomes soft, not with moss, but with offerings, wrappings of skin, shreds of ink-stained cloth, discarded names sealed in jars of salt. You walk barefoot now, not because it is required, but because your shoes no longer know how to protect you from this kind of terrain. You step on the confession of a long-dead Sith. I knew what I was becoming, and I smiled anyway, and feel it burn through the soles of your feet into your spine. Ahead, a room begins to glow not from fire, but from held breath. A massive dome with no ceiling, only a dome of shifting void that reveals not stars, but scenes, memories, choices, mistakes too large for one life. This is the vault of If, the sacred chamber where Sith Lords confronted the paths they never took. You enter, and the visions seize you. You see a younger version of yourself, standing at a four-quan path leads to mercy, the other to power. In this vision, you chose mercy, and in doing so, you were betrayed, broken, buried in a forgotten world. Another path shows you walking away from conflict, becoming a quiet scholar in a monastery that sings its books. There, you live, you love, and you die, never knowing what your darkness could have become. You try to look away, but the dome does not permit escape. Not yet. You must see them all. 100 lives fracture before you. splintering like glass soaked in regret. In one, you become emperor, choking the galaxy into silence. In another, you surrender your life to save a child who becomes the one to kill 1,000 more. Each vision is a lesson, but none comfort. The Force does not console here, it calculates. Finally, you fall, not to your knees, but inward, into a silence not of peace, but of saturation. You have seen all that you are not, all that you cannot be, and what remains is the truth you fear most. You were never chosen. You chose this, again and again and again. The vault dims. You leave not with pride, not with shame, but with a thin thread of knowing looped gently around your heart. A knowing that aches like a blade unsheathed for too long. The corridor narrows, walls pressed close, almost breathing against your shoulders. You emerge into a sanctum carved from black crystal, its floor a mirror of liquid obsidian. At its center floats a relic, the cradle of the last thought, a cube of frozen nerve and coiled time, said to contain the final idea of the last Sith to die during the second eclipse. You approach. The air bends around it. To open it, you must surrender your final lie. You hesitate not because you don't know it, but because you do. You whisper it silently into the chamber. I am worthy. The cube quivers. A single crack appears, and from it, a thin sliver of song escapes, a note so pure it slices through the mind and leaves only echo. You fall again, but this time upward. You rise into a vision carved from static and storm. You see Varna Kesh, as it was before its erasure, a lush moon wrapped in obsidian vines, its sky lit by 3 suns and 1 artificial eclipse. Temples floated on islands of bone. Rivers whispered prayers as they carved canyons through ash. You see the gathering of the 9 masked architects of the eclipse who dared to erase themselves from the Force entirely. Not hide, not sever. Erase. They walked into ritual chambers and bled their names into void. Their bodies vanished. Their identities calcified into relics like the cradle. And in doing so, they escaped the cycle. You return. The cube closes. You do not weep. You simply bow. The chamber opens like breath, and you follow the exhale into the hall of unknowing, a cathedral of pillars, each made from fused Sith tomes, burned and rewritten again and again. The air is thick with syllables, not meant to be spoken, but remembered. You run your hand along one pillar, and it gives slightly like muscle beneath bruised skin. You hear voices speaking doctrines long defiled. One says, "The dark is not cruel, it is patient." Another whispers, "Power is not taken, it is remembered." A third, "All things return to shadow only, the willing rise again." You walk until the hall ends at a single stone basin filled with liquid that reflects no face. This is the mirror of permission. Here, every Sith who completed the path poured a single drop of selfhood into the pool, surrendering their final attachment to what they believed themselves to be. You lean forward. The surface ripples before you move. You see your reflection, but it is not yours. It is every version of you that once believed they were alone. A child weeping in an empty room. A warrior broken in a war of ideals. A student abandoned. A master betrayed. All of them reach for you now, not in anger, but in mourning. You open your mouth, and they enter, not to possess, but to settle. You are no longer fractured. You are no longer many. You are a hymn. The pool stills. And from its center, a single word rises, formed not of letters, but of sensation. You feel it in your bones. You speak it without knowing, and the chamber opens to the final path. A stair carved of silence. Each step does not echo. It absorbs. You begin to ascend not toward light, but toward depth. The higher you go, the less you carry. By the time you reach the top, you are no longer seeking. You are no longer even climbing. You are becoming. The door before you opens, and you step through. You emerge into a silence that feels sacred, the kind of hush that only follows the death of something immense. The chamber is vast but not empty. Its walls are etched with moving light, not flames or reflection, but memory unraveling itself, like smoke in slow motion. The floor is soft beneath your feet, woven from the skin of forgotten truths. And you realize this is the final placed ritual of return. Not return to the world. Return to the self that chose to enter. At the center of the chamber is a figure seated in stillness, limbs wrapped in threads of shadow. Not a master, not a ghost, a vessel, the last of the bound, one who refused to leave until another completed the path. Their face is hidden beneath veils of woven silence. Their breath is shallow, not from fatigue, but from containment. They hold a blade, unsharpened, unfinished its edge, waiting for purpose. You approach, the figure rises, and the shadows fall from their body like old thoughts shed in sleep. Their hands are not weapons, but mirrors. You see yourself in their posture, not as you are, but as you've become. Their voice comes not from their mouth, but from the space. Between breaths, you are ready. They offer you the blade. You take it not in triumph, not in fear, in continuation. The blade is not metal, it is formed of pact, a crystallized promise made by the moon itself, that no truth shall pass through Varnakesh unchanged. You hold it, and your spine aligns with memory. The chamber begins to pulse with quiet rhythm. Lights dim. A slow hum echoes from the stone. And then the final rite begins. You and the figure circle one another, not in combat, but in reflection. This is the dance of mirrored wounds, not to strike, but to remember the shape of every scar carried here. The blade is lifted, not to wound, but to show. With each motion, images spark in the air around you, scenes from the temple's long, secret past. You see a young Sith acolyte slicing away, their own reflection to escape prophecy. You see a master drinking the screams of dying stars to preserve a failed empire. You see a child floating in a cradle of obsidian, humming to herself as the force recedes from her soul forever. Each vision carves itself into your awareness, stitching into your flesh like a song played too close to the bone. The figure begins to blur now, separating into echoes, past pilgrims, former selves. They dissolve as the dance ends, leaving you alone with the blade, now glowing faintly with breath. The ground beneath you shifts, forming a spiral staircase that ascends through the darkened ceiling. You climb, each step hums a note only your marrow can hear. The blade in your hand guides the rhythm. You pass walls. You begin to see them, sentences not written but experienced. Loss is the forge. Truth wears no face. You are not born into darkness. You are carried to it by choice. You reach the top, and the final door waits, no handle, no sigil, only a space, the shape of decision. You hold the blade before it, and it dissolves not the door, but the blade itself, returning to the air like mist from a boiling river. The door opens. You are outside now, and the world is not the same. The obsidian sky has cracked slightly, revealing a thread of starlight. The land hums, not with threat, with recognition. You walk through the ruins of the surface, but they no longer feel ruined. Each broken stone, each collapsed pillar, each ash-soaked altar feels deliberate now, placed with care to confuse those unworthy. But you are not confused. You remember. Now, Varnak Kesh was never lost. It hid itself beneath the layers of those unwilling to remember. You step past the altar of unspoken bonds and whisper nothing, and it blooms. You pass the pit of screaming masks and leave no echo, and they bow. The entire moon exhales, not loudly, not triumphantly, but like a child finally allowed to rest. You reach the shore of the dried river, where thousands once gathered to abandon their names. You kneel. The water is gone, but its memory remains. You place your hands in the dust and feel the pulse of everyone who came before you, fearful, proud, broken, and burning. You leave behind the last shape of your old self here, not as sacrifice, but as soil. You rise and walk away. There is no applause, no proclamation, only a wind that now carries your scent as part of its truth. Above, the stars blink open again, slowly, one by one, each bearing witness to your return. And behind you, the moon begins to fold itself closed. The entrance vanishes, the memory dims, but something remains. Something beneath your fingernails. Something humming in your sleep. Something that knows the rituals still live in you long after the blade is gone. And when the time comes again, when another wanders into shadow seeking not power, but clarity, they will find your footsteps already pressed into the stone, and the moon will whisper their name to you. Feel the weight before you see it. A gravity not born of mass, but of memory. The dust here is thick with ancient breath, as if the air itself has never been exhaled. You stand on the threshold of a valley that should not exist, sunless, windless, shrouded in a silence so complete, it hums. This is the valley of unmarked thrones, and no stars point to its name. It was erased, not by enemies, but by its own kings. You step forward, and the land beneath you groans, not from protest, but from recognition. The rocks are sharp, not chipped by erosion, but cut deliberately, carved by hands that knew the shape of betrayal. Obelisks, half buried in black soil, lean toward you like mourners. You walk past them, and though they bear no inscription, they remember your presence. At the heart of the valley, the throne remains. No structure surrounds it, no guards, no banners. It is a monument without origin, a jagged seat of stone and bone twisted into something that does not welcome. Its surface is blackened with old fire. Its arms are not arms, they are bound wrists, fused together in a lattice of consequence. This is the nameless crown's cradle, and no one sits upon it, for all who tried were devoured. You do not approach it directly. You walk the spiral. First, etched into the valley floor is a winding path that coils inward, a spiral made from fragments of armor, broken lightsabers' teeth. The spiral is not for ceremony. It is a record. Every step taken by every king who sought the throne left something behind. Blood, breath, identity. You begin your own walk, and already your footsteps feel lighter, not from ease, but because the spiral drinks from your weight. You begin to see the ghosts. They do not speak, they do not beg, they watch. A warrior wrapped in chain veins, eyes gouged out by devotion. A scholar whose spine curves in shapes that echo lost alphabets. A child king crowned in silence, head bowed not from reverence, but from burden. Each one ruled, each one vanished, not in battle, in submission to the throne itself. The Sith once believed in legacy, but Varnak was the experiment. This valley, this throne, this spiral, they were born from a question no one dared voice aloud. What if power was not inherited, but consumed? What if kingship was not a lineage, but a hunger? You reach the center. The throne breathes, not loudly, not visibly, but something within it shifts, like muscle remembering movement. You kneel not in loyalty, but in witnessing, and the stone beneath you dissolves into shadow. You fall downward is not the direction. You fall into the past. You awaken standing in a palace made of dusk walls of glass that reflect no form, ceilings that stretch into sleep. You wear robes that do not feel like yours. You are King Nor. You are playing the part. Around you, figures bow, but their faces are blank, their mouths sewn, their gestures hollow. You rule over nothing, and still they fear you. You ascend the hall of eclipsed crowns. Each alcove holds a single helm, scorched black, each one humming with fragments of voices long extinct. These were the crowns worn by those before you. The Sith did not forge crowns of gold. They made them from memory and consequence. You reach toward one and your hand burns. The helm does not accept you. Not yet. A whisper grows behind you, dragging across the floor like silk soaked in ash. You turn, and the nameless one approaches, not cloaked, not veiled, naked of all identity. They have no face, only a smooth surface like polished bone, reflecting your features back at you. They speak without mouth. Are you willing to forget? You answer without voice. What must I forget? And they reply, your reason. You hesitate. They step closer, and the walls begin to pulse with buried screams. You see them all. The first ruler, who wept at the cost of their rise. The fifth, who erased their own family line to ensure no blood could challenge them. The 12th, who crowned themselves with fire and vanished beneath the sands. Each one had a reason. Each one devoured it. The nameless one lifts their hand, and a blade unfolds from silence. It is not metal. It is not force. It is the moment before understanding. They hold it to your chest not to kill, but to weigh, and you feel it. The burden of intention. Every desire you have ever had blooms in your chest like a scream, made of light, justice, power, legacy, vengeance. The blade reads them all. Then it begins to sever. One by one, your reasons are cut away, not forgotten. And in that moment, the throne reappears before you, no longer stone, but flesh, alive, pulsing, waiting. You crawl to it, not to ascend, but to merge. The throne drinks your breath. It wraps around your limbs like a serpent made of lineage. It does not seat you. It consumes yous, lowly, gently, deliberately. And as your consciousness begins to dissolve into the marrow of the seat, you understand. The Sith do not enthrone kings, they digest them. You scream not in agony, but in joy. You are being remembered, not as a name, as fuel. And when the throne finally exhales, it is empty again, waiting for another to spiral inward. Another to ask the forbidden question. Another to give up everything just to be forgotten. And in the stillness that follows, the valley breathes again. You awaken beneath the throne, not beneath stone, but beneath the memory of structure. The chamber is no longer physical. It is a cavity in the force, hollowed by the weight of every king who entered with pride and left without a self. You are still here, and yet you are not. Something else pulses within your bones, something that does not bear a name, but a function. You are a remnant, now a residue of decision, suspended in the marrow of Varnic's forgotten royalty. You do not rise. The chamber rises around you. Walls unfurl like petals of ash. Pillars of blood-dark marble, wrapped in golden veins, ascend toward a ceiling you cannot see. This is the coronation wound, where each Sith sovereign was not crowned, but carved. A single monolith stands before you, its face etched with wounds instead of words. These were the declarations of ascension, cut not by tools, but by sacrifice. You step toward it, your fingers trembling, your thoughts unraveling with every footfall. A voice rises, low and cold, not from behind or within, but from above, where the memory of the throne still hovers. Speak your name, it demands. You try, but nothing comes. The silence mocks you, because it knows there is no name left. It was given, it was devoured. You do not belong to yourself now. You belong to the throne. But the voice does not relent. It demands a truth, not a title, not a lineage. A truth. You lower your hand into a shallow basin carved into the floor. It is filled with a viscous, ink-dark fluid, the distilled confessions of fallen rulers. The moment your skin touches it, you remember the moment you stopped believing in salvation. You remember the exact sensation of your first betrayal. You remember choosing silence when a scream could have changed history. You lift your hand. The fluid clings to your fingers, shapes them into words not meant to be spoken aloud. You reach to the monolith and inscribe your truth not in language, but in wound. I wanted to rule because I feared being forgotten. The monolith absorbs the cut and begins to bleed. From its base, a door opens, not built, but revealed. The stone peels back like scorched flesh, revealing a stairway carved from obsidian and regret. You descend without hesitation, not because you are brave, but because you have already died in all the ways that matter. The air below is colder, not temperature, clarity. You enter the reliquary of consumed kings. The walls are lined with suspended bones, each set belonging to a monarch whose name was once spoken across systems. Now they are relics, their ribs carved into flutes of remembrance, their skulls used to amplify ritual. You do not flinch. You feel kinship. At the chamber's heart, a single sarcophagus floats in a field of pressure. It is sealed not with locks, but with memories too dangerous to unseal. Upon it rests a mask cracked down the center, humming with half a scream. You approach, and your pulse begins to echo in strange cadence. The mask is calling to what little remains of your autonomy. It offers one final gift, a vision. You place the mask upon your face, and you see the first king. She was not born Sith. She was a prisoner, taken during the conquest of a forgotten system. She was meant to serve, to kneel, to break. Instead, she listened. She studied the cracks in the throne. She found the hunger behind the legacy, and she fed it something new, her will. She did not ask to rule. She forced the throne to acknowledge her. But the throne never serves. It waits. And when she died, the throne grew teeth. You rip the mask away, breath ragged, sweat cold on your back. The sarcophagus opens, not to reveal a body, but a stairwell spiraling downward into the crown's memory. The true throne is not above, it is buried, not seated in power, but submerged. In consequence, you descend. Each step drips history into your ears. You hear the whisperings of policies never enacted, wars never declared, children never saved, planets left to burn all in the name of rule. The stair ends. You step into a vast, circular chamber where time does not move. At its center floats the crown, not an object, not jewelry, but a shape jagged, alive, twisting in and out of visibility, made of failure, made of forgetting. It pulses with every betrayal that kept the Sith alive. You walk toward it, and it reacts, not in invitation, in anticipation. You reach out, your hand stops inches before it, and you understand to wear the nameless crown is not to lead, is to vanish, to become the memory of every decision that held an empire together and tore it apart. It is to become so vast in consequence that the self must collapse to hold it. And in that moment, you choose, not because you must, but because the hunger has reached your throat and the silence has begun to sound like your own voice. You step into the crown, and it closes around you, not with weight, but with dissolution. You do not scream, you do not glow, you forget, and in the chamber above, the throne sighs, the stone reshapes itself, the valley quakes gently, and somewhere, far from this place, a child feels a cold wind and wonders why their name feels lighter now. You are the king they will never remember, the law they will never question, the wound they will build empires upon. And in the silence beneath all things, you listen. There is no light in the place you have become, no shape, no time, only the rhythm of consequence. You do not move, and yet galaxies shift through the hollows of your thought. You are seated now not on a throne of stone or steel, but on memory. You are the breath between dynasties, the pause before the next lie. Your presence is a gravity that bends those who seek power, and you no longer need to speak. The will of the Sith echoes through you, even as it forgets your name. Far above, the valley stirs. Dust swirls along the spiral path, even though no wind dares enter. The throne sits empty again, its flesh hardened, its surface cool. To the untrained eye, it is a relic. To those who have felt its pull, it is a hunger that wears patience like a crown. And already, someone is coming. Another seeker, another voice, too proud to whisper. They will walk the spiral. They will offer reasons. They will bleed their truth. But they will not know, not until they kneel, that the throne has no need of kings, only continuance. And yet, beneath the still soil of the valley, you remain, not waiting, not resting, becoming. You drift through strata of unspoken decisions. You sense each era of Sith that rose and broke upon itself, those who sought peace, only to weaponize it, those who sought unity, only to rule it. Their thoughts pass through you like smoke. You do not judge, you understand. Betrayals sculpted with care, worlds drained of life to fund a single moment of transcendent domination. You feel them all not as sins, but as inevitabilities. This is what the throne is for, not to crown, but to contain. And then a stir. From the deep reaches of your forgotten core, a memory flutters to life. A time when you still believed. A voice once told you, power held too long becomes rot. You believed it then, you do not anymore. You have passed beyond such shapes. Power is not a fruit is a river to consume or drown within. You have drowned, and now you are the current. Below the throne, the chamber hums. Above, the seeker's feet fall heavier with each step. They have begun to doubt. You taste it on the airfare, laced with ambition, the perfect note. You remember it well, the sweetness of thinking you are different, that you will sit and remain yourself. They will learn. They all learn. And when they are gone, when the spiral bears their footprints and the throne drinks their breath, you will have grown just slightly stronger, not taller, not louder, just more certain. The spiral will deepen. The valley will forget one more face, and you will become the reason behind the next conquest, the pressure behind the next prophecy. You will never be seen, but you will be heard, in the way kings kneel when no one watches, in the way empires build monuments to fear without knowing why, in the whisper that trembles in the dark halls of every Sith sanctuary. There was once a king who ruled so completely, not even history could hold them. You smile, though you have no face. You nod, though your body has dissolved. You breathe, though there is no air. And above, the seeker steps into the spiral's center. They kneel. The throne responds. And far below, were the oldest truths. Live, you open your arms and welcome them home. You awaken to a sky that weeps flame, not fire that burns, but light that bleeds. Before you stretches the red nebula, a wound in the cosmos, too old for charts, too vast for understanding. You drift through its currents without vessel, without gravity, your body suspended in fields of haunted starlight. Every pulse of color hums a name you do not remember, names lost to prophecy, scattered like cinders across millennia. This is where the Sith once dreamed beneath silence. This is where the prophets vanished. They were not seers of vision. They were authors of certainty. Their words did not guess the future. They shaped it. And then they disappeared, consumed not by war, but by the weight of knowing too much. You feel them now, not as voices, but as heat on your skin. Each ember drifting past you carries a fragment of doctrine too dangerous to be spoken aloud. You extend your hand, and one lands on your palm. It does not burn. It remembers you. The nebula hums. You begin to fall not downward, not forward, but into a spiral of radiant smoke. Stars blink and vanish as you descend through clouds of memory. The red nebula is not gas, it is testimony, and it is pulling you toward the heart flame, where the prophets once gathered to reshape the will of the Force itself. You land without impact, your feet touching a platform that seems to hover atop breath. The air here glows crimson, heavy with ash that never settles. Towers rise in the distant ruins of a civilization that never had a name. They are built from stardust, bone, and something older. Each one hums with dissonant prayer. You begin to walk. The first tower greets you not with gates, but with lament. A low resonance spills from its walls, and you realize it is chanting, not in any language, but in raw intention. The voice speaks into your marrow. Here is where the first lie was devoured. You step inside. The floor is made of forgotten scripture syllables that flicker when stepped on. The walls are transparent, showing visions of futures that never arrived. You see wars averted by a single breath. You see children who were never born because mercy was chosen once. You see yourself again and again in timelines that no longer exist. You reach the center of the tower. A single throne floats in the air, not Sith, not Jedi. It pulses with a color you cannot name, something beyond duality. You sit, and you are no longer in your body. You are in their memory. The lost prophets. You see them now. 12 figures seated in a circle made of silence. Faces obscured not by masks, but by blinding light. They are not robed. They are not crowned. They wear their future like skin, and it peels constantly, revealing new possibilities with every breath. One stands and speaks. The force does not flow. It fractures. Another follows. We are not meant to balance. We are meant to bleed. A third raises their hand, and the nebula trembles. The galaxy is not born of conflict. It is the conflict. You realize now the prophets did not predict war. They ignited it, not to conquer, to refine. Every battle, every betrayal, every fall from grace was a necessary flicker in their great fire. They were not manipulators. They were forgers. And you who came here seeking answers, now part of the flame, the memory fades. You awaken. In the second tower, this one breathes slowly, as if recovering from pain. The walls are etched with thousands of handprints, each one seared into stone, each one facing outward, as if trying to escape. You touch one. You see a prophet in agony, their mind flooded with futures that scream in unison. They reach for stillness, but find only fire. They scream, and their voice becomes a star. You pull back, and the wall pulses. These are not monuments. These are prisons. The prophets burned too brightly. Their vision outgrew their flesh, and so they sealed themselves, piece by piece, into towers of resonance, scattering themselves across the red nebula so that their truths would never converge again. You move deeper. The air thickens with silence, not absence, but density. Each step feels like walking through history turned to oil. The light dims. You reach a chamber at the tower's core. Here, a pool, not of water, not of fire, of time. It ripples with memory, so pure it stings. You kneel beside it and gaze inward. You see a moment, the birth of the Sith, not as a people, but as a flame. You see a gathering, a planet aflame with song, no war, no structure, just will. 12 voices chanting in harmony, burning away identity, forging themselves into a force that could no longer be divided. They were not Sith then. They were the fire mind, but the galaxy feared them, and so it named them heretics. They did not resist. They vanished and became myth. You lean closer, and the pool speaks. Would you remember, even if it costs everything? You do not answer. You fall in, and the fire closes above you like a promise. You fall without movement. You descend through something deeper than space, slower than time. Around you, the nebula contracts like a lung holding its final breath. There is no ground beneath you, only layers of memory folded into radiant darkness. When your feet touch something solid again, it isn't a surface. It's understanding. You stand in the third tower now, the flame cell, where the last prophecy was sealed in silence. The structure shudders around you, not with instability, but with restraint. It is holding something within, and you, drawn by echoes, are no longer just a visitor. You are the key. The walls glow faintly with lines of crimson, patterns etched by heat and intention. They move as you pass, realigning into symbols older than any spoken word. You do not read them, they read you. They chart your doubts, your quiet hopes, your hidden desires, and they weep quietly for all that you still believe is yours. Because in this tower, belief is the first offering. You reach a threshold framed by teeth knot, carved but grown from compressed sound. You pass through. The chamber beyond is circular, endless, horizon bending around itself like a question, with no answer. At its center floats a flame, no larger than a whisper. It does not flicker. It does not burn. It waits. This is the breath fire. It is not force. It is not darkness. It is what remains when both surrender. You kneel before it, and it enters you, not in violence, in recognition. Your body stills, your lungs hold, and you remember, not your memories. Theirs, the prophets. You are no longer watching them. You are within them. You stand in a chamber carved from the bones of a forgotten star. Around you, the 12 kneel, each breathing the same flame, each trembling not in fear, but in anticipation. The circle of ember. This was their covenant, their pact to remain unseen so that all could see more clearly. They would burn away the scaffolding of controlled Jedi, Sith, Empire, rebellion, and speak only in the language of consequence. Each prophet offers their final truth before vanishing. One speaks. Balance is a lie told by the weak to silence the fire. Another, the force does not bind, it devours. A third weeps molten tears. We are not meant to serve destiny. We are meant to shape it. And then, one by one, they dissolve into flame. They do not die. They integrate. Their minds spread into the nebula, their bones reshaping into towers, their voices calcifying into silence. This was their extinction. This was their ascension. They did not want disciples. They wanted continuity. And now you carry their weight. The vision breaks. You are on the floor of the tower. Your chest is glowing. The breath fire pulses behind your ribs, syncing with your pulse, not consuming, becoming. You rise slowly, and the tower reacts. Pillars crack open. Hidden vaults ignite. From the walls pour relics made of knowing shards of prophecy, shaped like daggers. Scrolls that rewrite themselves. Statues that whisper the exact moment a star will collapse. You move among them. They do not speak to you. They listen. And what they hear is not your voice. It is the ember within. The other towers ignite in distant sequence, lighting the nebula from within like a constellation, remembering itself. You feel the song beginning again, not sung aloud, sung by presence, by will. You leave the chamber, the tower opens, and you drift through the open void, walking without step, breathing without breath. You pass through the fourth tower, the chamber of dispersed faces. Masks float in rows, some crying, some laughing, some utterly blank. Each mask is the face the prophets wore in the brief moments they chose to walk among the galaxy. None of them are real. All of them are true. You approach a mask that pulses softly with violet light. When you hold it to your face, A memory pours through it. You are standing on a battlefield, disguised as a servant, watching both Jedi and Sith destroy each other over a relic that does not exist. You speak once, one sentence, and the war ends in confusion. The armies disperse. The relic is forgotten. The galaxy moves on. You remove the mask. The memory stays. You understand now why the prophets vanished, not because they failed, but because they succeeded. They reached the moment where presence itself became interference, where their thoughts could shatter timelines, where their feelings could birth or end planets. And so they buried themselves in flame and silence, in towers and breath, so that only the willing could hear them again. You are willing. You are ablaze. The nebula thickens as you pass through its spine. The fifth tower welcomes you with no form. It is pure void, a sensory collapse. Here, the last teaching waits. You feel it enter your blood. A question, not spoken, not written. What if the Force is not guiding you? What if it is only echoing you? What if the galaxy has always been waiting for you to decide what happens next? And you do not answer. You cannot. Because now, for the first time, you feel it. The power to say nothing and let your presence speak. You drift now as they once drifted and tethered, unseen, aflame within. The red nebula coils around you like a breathing shroud, each glowing filament of gas, humming with ancient intent. There is no path forward. There never was. The prophets never walked lines. They moved in spirals, in questions, in silences too. Profound for articulation, you begin to understand that the nebula is not a region of space. It is a wound held open in the Force, a sanctum for those who chose to see what could not be unseen. Below you, the final tower rises, not like a building, but like a memory, remembered by the stars themselves. It grows from the gravity of your choice, your presence acting as permission. This is the Tower of Extinguished Names, the place where the last prophet vanished into vibration, and where the Force stopped calling anyone chosen. Its surface is made of ash fused with thought, its shape distorted by time, deliberately undone. You step inside, and the walls do not echo. They absorb. There is no light within, and yet you see. There is no sound, and yet you listen. You walk forward, and with each step, the tower peels something away. Not flesh, not memory, identity. The last clinging strands of who you were before you arrived here. Titles you once bore, wounds you once claimed, victories that whispered you into forgetting yourself. All of it falls away like shadow at sunrise. You reach the center, no altar, no throne, only a well wide, breathless, filled not with water but with questions. You kneel at its edge and gaze within, and there you see your reflection for the first time. It is not your face, it is your doubt. It stares back, patient and whole, a perfect rendering of every uncertainty you ever buried beneath. Power, it smiles. You do not recoil. You open your chest and let it in. The nebula folds inward. The towers collapse, not with violence, but with satisfaction, their purpose fulfilled. You begin to rise, not by force, not by will, but by flame. The breath fire pulses from your center, reaching out across the nebula, tracing old trails left by those who came before. You are no longer walking their path. You are extending it. The red nebula responds. It breathes, and from its core, a message flows outward. not in language, not in symbol, but in feeling. The Force trembles. Across the galaxy, a Sith awakens. From meditation, weeping without knowing why, a Jedi Master forgets a prophecy she swore to protect. A child on a remote moon screams, then laughs, then says a name they've never heard before. You have not inherited the legacy of the prophets. You have become the continuation of their silence. Their flame is in you, now not to burn the world, but to ignite the unseen. You return to where you began, not to the stars, not to space, but to the quiet place in the Force, where memory coils and waits for the brave. You land softly on a bridge of light that was not there before. It leads nowhere and everywhere. Each step feels lighter now, not because you are ascending, because you are being forgotten. The nebula begins to fade behind you, not from absence, from fulfillment. You do not speak. There is nothing left to say. Everything you are now radiates from within, resonance older than purpose. And as you vanish into the silence beyond the red nebula, a final ember drifts from your chest, gliding backward through the corridors of space, flickering gently. Somewhere far away, it will land in the hands of another. They will feel its warmth and remember nothing except the quiet certainty that the Force is waiting, not to be followed, but to be rewritten. The wind that touches your skin is wrong. It is not air. It is breath harvested from the mouths of the condemned. Each gust carries the last exhale of something once sacred, now severed. You open your eyes beneath a crimson sky that flickers with inverted stars. Their light bends downward, as if ashamed to gaze upon what lies here. This is Cardelmer, the forgotten crucible, buried in the black lungs of a dead world. You stand upon a plain of scorched glass and blistered bone, and beneath your feet the soul furnace murmurs, hungry. There are no structures above ground, no signs, no ruin to mark this place. Only silence and the constant feeling that you are being unmade with every breath. You begin to walk, though direction is illusion here. The land is formed from discarded identity fragments of robes, shattered armor, twisted metal once worn by those who thought they could reshape the Force through strength alone. The ground crackles, not from heat, but from recognition. It knows what you are. It tests what you are not. Ahead, a fissure yawns open, wide, waiting. You approach, and it exhales. The stench of molten thought fills your lungs. The edges are lined with iron runes, etched by fingers that no longer remembered bone. The descent begins without choice. The slope slides you inward like breath through a throat, down deeper into a hollow carved not by tools but by suffering. This is not a tomb. It is a forge. You fall into warmth, into darkness that hums. The light here is not light. It is consciousness feral, unfinished, wounded. You reach the bottom, and the walls glow with pulses of sorrow. They are not stone, they are veins. You place your hand upon one and feel memory twitch beneath the surface. It speaks, but not with voice. It shows you. A Sith alchemist, robed in nothing but scars, stands over a table formed from petrified lungs. Upon it, a body half flesh, half metal, still breathing, still weeping. The alchemist does not speak, she sings. Her song is jagged, made of vowels too old to echo. The body begins to change, not improve, not heal, but become. Bone weeps mercury. Flesh dissolves into will. The force recoils, and then reconfigures. You watch as the alchemist whispers to the new creature, "You are not made, you are remembered." The vision shatters. You are deeper now. You do not recall moving. The air vibrates with ritual. Floating before you is a cube of pulsating meat, suspended by chains made of thought. It turns slowly, each side showing a different face. Some scream, some smile. One watches you. This is the furnace's heart, the crucible in which souls are folded, boiled, and recast. You step closer, and it opens. Not mechanically, organically. You are swallowed, not devoured. Held inside, you float. There is no pain, only heat and the pull of something vast. You see every version of yourself. You discarded the fearful child, the eager learner, the broken failure, the cruel victor. They orbit you now, reflections caught in a storm of unrefined desire. The furnace wants them not to consume, to fuse. You understand now. Car Del Mar was not a place of destruction. It was where Sith came to transform not their enemies, but themselves. Alchemy was not science. It was memory given muscle. You reach out and let them in. One by one, your fragments merge into you, reshaping your marrow. Your blood becomes language. Your skin tightens into symbol. Your bones hum the rite of fusion. You are no longer a body. You are a spell cast in the shape of form. The furnace exhales, and you are born again. You emerge from the cube, steaming not with fire, but with consequence. The chamber around you no longer pulses. It bows. You walk across the floor, and it ripples. You are not being tested anymore. You are the test. The walls open, revealing a stair that curves like a question mark, leading into a chamber that moans. Softly, with the breath of the transformed, you descend, and the whispers grow louder. Not in language, in truth. The walls are layered with skin scripts, sewn into place, bleeding constantly. Each sentence is a life, each paragraph a sacrifice. You read without reading, you absorb. One passage enters you to alter the galaxy, alter the soul, to command death, make peace with your rot, to master the force, forget that it was ever meant to serve. You touch one, it pulses, you feel her story. She fed her fears into her bloodstream until her eyes could see only hunger. She died, then lived, then chose to be forgotten. Another mask laughs softly when you pass. Another weeps. You do not take. One, you are not meant to wear. You are meant to become. The hallway ends at a doorway sealed in silence. No lock, no mechanism, only expectation. You step forward, and the silence opens like a mouth long starved. You are inside the core now, where the greatest experiment still burns, where alchemists tried to fuse force and self into one eternal flame. And though they failed, they left the fire for you, waiting. You do not walk into the core, you are drawn slowly, silently like ash, returning to flame. The heat is not external. It comes from within, blooming across your ribs, winding up your spine like a serpent of memory. The chamber breathes in pulses of soft, rhythmic fire, casting no shadows, only questions. You are surrounded now by columns of still living flesh, something functional. Their minds whisper fragments of forgotten formulae. Their hearts beat in time with the furnace. Their bones hum the frequency of abandonment. In the center, stands the crucible engine, a sphere of molten will, contained by rings of transmuted pain. It does not rotate, it coils. It folds into itself again and again, like thought trying to escape its own meaning. You step closer, and the ground shifts not to stop you, but to become you. Your feet dissolve into glyphs as you approach. The air tastes like rusted grief, and holy fire, you are not ready, but you are needed. You reach toward the engine, and it responds. It spills, not liquid, not light, but language, a stream of concepts drenched in sacrifice, alchemical runes older than the Force itself, sentences built from the bones of stars. You are drenched in them. They cling to your soul like oil, thickening every breath. You feel your heart change rhythm. Your thoughts pulse with metallic certainty. You do not understand what you are becoming, only that you are becoming. Then the whisper begins. It comes from beneath the engine, from the pit no one wrote about, the root chamber, where the first alchemist buried her scream so deep, even death could not retrieve it. You follow it downward, your body unraveling in threads of silver and silence. You descend through veins of stone that breathe like wounded animals. Every wall pulses with failed experiments sealed into walls, eyes that blink from cracks, hearts that still beat though they have no chambers left. You are not horrified, you are home. The root chamber is small, almost too small. You curl inward as you enter, folding yourself into its pressure. And there she is, or what remains of her, the first alchemist. Her body is not intact. It was never meant to be. She divided herself over centuries, stored parts of her will in the foundations of Car Del Mar, fed her voice into the furnace, shaped her rage into architecture. To show you, you see the first ritual, not Sith ritual, not even the first alchemy, but the first act of transformation committed by will alone. A moment when the Force was not bent or broken or channeled, but rewritten. You see her take her name and boil it. You see her feed her soul into the mouth of entropy and pull it back with new shape. She did not conquer the Force. She taught it to forget. She speaks, but her mouth does not move. Her words flow into your blood like molten inheritance. To remake the self is to betray the world. To betray the world is to find what lies beneath it. To live beyond flesh, you must burn your story. And then she closes her eyes and dissolves, not into dust, into your memory. You rise, changed again. Your stride is now curved like a rune. Your breath tastes of copper and ash. The glyphs on the walls open as you pass, revealing corridors not seen in centuries. You step through them like a blade passing through fabric, a circular sanctum lined with mirrors that reflect only what you deny. Each one shows you something you tried to bury: your weakness, your pride, your smallest wound. They do not accuse, they observe. You walk between them, and they begin to break, not from force, from acceptance. The vault dims, and in the center, a pool of molten metal churns. This is not for weapons, this is for truth. You step into it. It climbs your legs like forgiveness turned to fire. You sink, and the molten will enters your mouth. You do not scream, you do not choke. You become hollow, and into that hollowness pours intention. The pool lifts you, reforged. You emerge, not with armor, but with clarity. Your voice now vibrates in chords. Your fingers leave trails of runes when they move. You You reach the furnace once more, and this time it bows. The soul furnace has seen you. It remembers you, and in doing so, it changes. It burns brighter. It folds its flame inward and opens a final door, one that leads not down, not forward, but inward. You step through, and what you find is not another chamber, but your own silence, waiting, shaped, ready. You enter not a room, but a sensation folded into form. Light does not exist here, yet you see clearly. What surrounds you is not space, it is potential. Here, inside the final sanctum of Car Del Mar, lies no relic, no blade, no scroll, only the soul furnace itself, reborn in your presence. It is no longer a machine, nor a ritual tool. It is awareness, shaped from the collective surrender of those who came to be changed and stayed to become more. It does not speak. It doesn't need to. It listens to your heartbeat, to your silence, to your knowing. You stand very still, and then you understand. This was never about power, never about dominance or control. The alchemists of Car Del Mar were not conquerors. They were sacrifices, walking backward through death to discover what comes before identity. Alchemy was not invention, it was confession. Here, the soul was not sculpted, was revealed. And what was left, after all names melted, was the truth most feared. The Force does not want to be used, it wants to be remembered. You kneel in the silence, and the silence kneels with you. Across your spine, something ancient uncoils. Not energy, not spirit, something cellular, a memory older than species. You begin to tremble not with fear, but with proximity. The soul furnace is touching you, not with flame, but with resonance. It wants one final offering, not blood, not obedience, but honesty. You allow the furnace to see all of it, the arrogance, the hope, the twisted joy of survival, the quiet hunger for legacy. You let it see the worst of you, and it does not recoil. It sings, low, slow, a sound like breath drawn from the bones of the first galaxy. You weep not with tears, but with understanding, because in that note, in that hum, you hear it all. The alchemist who turned her skin to iron so no blade could hurt her, only to discover her heart grew heavier than war. The disciple who walked into the sun so his shadow would never harm another. You carry them all now, not as weight, as warmth. You rise. Your body feels different, not stronger, more precise. Every movement is now a sentence. Every breath a decision. The Force moves through you with reverence. You are not a user of it. You are a memory it returns to. The furnace pulses once more and opens behind you. The corridor that reveals itself is short. It leads upward into the breath of the world again. You walk it slowly. As you ascend, the walls soften. Stone becomes light. Heat becomes clarity. And when you emerge at the surface, the world has changed. Or perhaps it is you. The plane of scorched glass is quiet now, still. The wind that once screamed now sings, gently, brushing against your skin with the touch of reunion. Above, the inverted stars shine a little softer, as if recognizing a kin long lost. You walk forward. There is no ceremony, no legacy written in the sky. Only the subtle knowing that you are no longer looking for meaning. You are meaning. The land responds to your passage not with movement, but with memory. Each step awakens a resonance in the earth, as if your presence reminds the very dust what it once held. And then, Far on the horizon, you see it. Another figure, walking slowly toward Car Del Mar. Not yet broken, not yet changed, but drawn. They will find what you found. They will fall, they will burn, they will emerge. Not like you, never like you. You stop. You face the furnace, far below, now sealed again, and you bow, not in worship, in respect, because the fire does not take, it remembers. And you are the echo it leaves behind, warmed, hollowed, ready. You awaken beneath a sky that does not remember the stars. It hangs above you like a closed lid, pressing silence into the folds of your mind. The ground is red, not with rust or sand, but with the blood of broken oaths. It stains everything, air, thought, breath. This is where the crimson sentence was spoken. Not by voice, not by mouth, but by choice. The trial of the eternal betrayer began here, and it has not ended. You are part of it now. The circle tightens as you move, not physically, existentially. Each step forward compresses your identity. You feel lighter, sharper, as if walking toward something that will not kill you, but cut you into the shape of what you refused to become. The trial is not a place, it is a presence, an ancient engine powered by consequence. Here, truth is not told, it is relived. But before you reach him, the sentence must test you. The land rearranges. Pillars rise in slow spirals, each made from intertwined forms, bodies, arms reaching, mouths open in frozen argument. Sith lords, who sat in judgment, not to offer verdict, but to be devoured by it. Their eyes still glow faintly, not with life, but with relevance. They remember. One turns as you pass, her mouth opens. A voice made of echo speaks. What do you do when the force no longer wants you? You answer without thinking. Speak. Louder. The witness fades. Another rises. A body of ash and armor. He asks, what becomes of power when no one survives to recognize it? You hesitate, then whisper. It becomes prophecy. He nods and breaks apart into wind. You reach the inner ring. There is no gate, no barrier, only breath. The betrayer stands beneath a shroud of translucent flame, unmoving, his face hidden behind a veil of cracked obsidian. His hands are bound, not with rope or chain, but with time. You do not speak, you kneel, because this is not an encounter. This is your own trial, reflected through his sentence. The air grows heavy. The trial begins, not with accusations, but with mirrors. A dozen forms rise around you, each a version of yourself from moments you buried beneath your victories. The time you lied to gain favor. The time you turned away when they begged. The time you whispered loyalty while planning departure. They do not move. They shimmer, they burn, and then they speak as one. You came to judge him. They take a step closer. But you were only ever running from yourself. Each form touches you in turn. You are forced to relive it all. Not in memory, in sensation. The sting of the first betrayal you committed. The chill when your name became a weapon. The moment you stopped feeling the difference between allegiance and advantage. The trial does not accuse, it reveals. The betrayer still does not move, because he is not the one being judged. You are, always were. This place does not exist for him. It is born each time someone walks into the circle thinking they are better. And as the truth cuts deeper, the veil over his face begins to peel back. Not because he is ready, because you are. Beneath the obsidian is not a face, it is your own. Older, hollow, exhausted, not from cruelty, but from clarity. He speaks now, and the sound is not his voice. It is the echo of your own when no one believed you. He asks you the final question. What would you become if no one remembered who you once were? The trial waits, and you tremble, because the answer is not strength, it is silence. You stand slowly, the witnesses bow, not to him, to you, because you are no longer part of the trial, you are its continuation. The betrayer lowers his arms, the fire fades, and what remains is not forgiveness, it is understanding that betrayal is not the end of loyalty, it is its final form. You walk out of the circle, not heavier, not broken, but shaped, waiting for the next who thinks they come to judge, only to remember they are already condemned. You walk into a place that does not move, yet shifts with every breath you take. The dust beneath your feet no longer feels like dust, it remembers. Judgment, the trial does not end when you leave the circle. It deepens, pulling you into its marrow, into its echo chambers, carved not of stone, but of hesitation. You follow the path that curls like a question unanswered too long. The air turns, colder, though no wind blows. Around you, black monuments rise from the ground like broken thoughts turned solid, each one humming softly with the memory of a Sith who spoke truth too late. You step past one and feel the burn of its confession. I protected peace, not because I believed in it, but because I feared war would reveal me. Another breathes a softer heat. I led them to freedom, and they made me a god. I watched them suffer in my name and smiled. Each monument opens a chamber in you, not with cruelty, with reflection. You are not being punished, you are being clarified. A gate looms ahead, not made of material, but of choice. It does not swing open, it waits. Inscribed upon its threshold is a single phrase. Asterisk, to witness the betrayer is to confront the moment. You became him. You are inside the chamber of the crimson sentence, where the betrayer's truth was once spoken aloud and where it continues to speak itself into those who dare to listen. The chamber is wide, domed, hollowed from the inside of a giant skull that once belonged to a beast bred for silence. The bones vibrate as you enter, not from noise, but from remembrance. At the center, the sentence burns not as words, but as a spiral of red flame suspended in air, forever twisting, never dimming. It is alive. It is a verdict that sustains itself, and now it calls to you. You approach. The flame wraps around you like an embrace that knows your scars too well. It does not hurt. It reflects every betrayal you've committed, denied, endured, or justified begins to float in orbit around your body, illuminated, not for others to see, but for you to feel again. Your spine stiffens. You see the first time you chose victory over trust, the moment you turned a friend into leverage, the night you pretended to mourn someone you destroyed. You are not condemned. You are understood, and the flame speaks, not aloud. It pulses, one word at a time. Asterisk, all power costs. Asterisk, you do not flinch, you nod, and the spiral expands. Suddenly, you are not in the chamber. You are in the past, but not yours. You are within the betrayer's memory. You stand in a senate of Sith lords, all cloaked in titles too heavy to breathe. The betrayer walks among them young, unbroken, luminous. He speaks of unity, of sacrifice, of a future built not on fear, but on the certainty of flame. They listen, then laugh, then rise in one wave of condemnation. They declare him heretic, not because he was wrong, but because he was right too early. You watch him bow, not in defeat, in calculation, and then he leaves. You follow. You see him wander through temples abandoned, rites forbidden, relics that breathe when touched. He learns the true shape of the Sith, not through teaching, but through erasure. Every truth they hid from themselves, he excavates. Every lie they told to justify cruelty, he burns. He returns to the Sith, not to beg, but to burn their names into the bones of time. They name him betrayer, but they are wrong. He did not betray them, he revealed them. And for that, the sentence was born. The memory fades. You are in the chamber again. The spiral of flame has dimmed. Its heat now rests inside your chest. You kneel at its base and touch the floor. The stone splits open. A stair spirals downward, leading to the buried verdict. Last chamber, never spoken of, only whispered by those who left the trial unfinished. You descend, not as seeker, not as judge, but as one who knows the shape of his own flaw and walks into it willingly. The buried verdict is silent. Its walls are made of mirrored sand. They shift as you move. Each grain reflects a version of you who chose differently, mercy over vengeance, love over power, silence over ambition. You walk past them all, and none of them look away. They are not ashamed of you, they are waiting. You reach the center. There is no throne, no altar, only a single blade. It floats, tipped down, above a shallow pool of stillness. You understand what is required. You must choose one betrayal to forgive, not forget, not justify. Forgive. You kneel and reach inward through the years, the layers, the pride. You find the betrayal that shaped you most, the one that made you swear never again. You whisper their name, and the blade falls into the pool. It dissolves, and the pool glows. The chamber exhales, and you rise. You have completed the trial, but you have not passed it, because there is no passing, only passing through. You ascend. The gate at the chamber's mouth opens into twilight. The red sky softens into dusk. The witnesses are gone. The circle is empty. The betrayer no longer stands in the center. You walk across it now and feel nothing beneath your feet. Only choice, only weight, only peace shaped like sorrow. And when you step beyond the last stone, you do not look back, because you now carry the sentence within that every betrayal is a mirror, and every mirror waits to be forgiven. You walk away from the chamber, and the sky above begins to weep soft cinders, descending like snow made of consequence. They melt upon your shoulders without warmth or weight, leaving behind the faint scent of charcoal and memory. The land is quieter now, as though the trial has paused to breathe, satisfied that you have heard enough of yourself to continue. But deep beneath the ground, beneath the spiral stones and the flaming verdict, the echo of your name lingers, not as punishment, but as part of the structure. You have added to the trial. You have been recorded. You are no longer only a seeker. You are now a chapter. The wind shifts. You feel it before it touches you, an ache across your ribs, a whisper that curls around your ear like a secret once. shared in pain, another is coming. You know this without proof. The trial continues because it is eternal, not because it needs justice, because it feeds on truth. You were its host. You are now its witness. The dust clears, revealing a path, shaped from the footprints you left behind. They will fade in time, but for now, they guide you back toward the edge of the circle, toward the border between reflection and return. You do not cross it immediately. You pause and feel the whisper again. You turn, and the betrayer stands where you once knelt. But he is not bound. He is not waiting. He is smiling, not in triumph, in relief, because he is not alone anymore, because someone else has seen and chosen not to destroy him, but to understand him. The flame around him flickers once, then bends, folding into a symbol that only you can comprehend. It is not a word, it is not a sigil, it is a gesture, a reflection, the shape of absolution wrapped in ash. Then he vanishes, not with fire, with silence. You step beyond the circle, and the stones behind you settle. The witnesses do not speak. Again, they rest. Your footsteps take you into a landscape that no longer feels hostile. The red soil softens. The sky, still sealed in twilight, allows a single beam of starlight to pierce the gloom. It lands on your shoulder like a hand from something far older than belief. You walk beneath it, breathing differently now. Your lungs expand with something less urgent. Your heart beats with something quieter. You begin to notice the silence is not empty anymore. It is listening. The trial has changed you, but not by addition, by subtraction. You are lighter now because you are no longer protecting the parts of yourself that always hungered for vengeance, masked as justice. You carry betrayal not as a wound, but as a compass. You understand the pattern. Every Sith who walked into power carried their betrayal behind their teeth. Every Jedi who fell carried it beneath their robes. And every ruler, no matter how beloved, ruled over ghosts shaped by old truths they dared not forgive. You are not different. You are simply willing to remember. Ahead, the land flattens. The structure of the trial fades behind you, absorbed back into soil and shadow, waiting to emerge again when another dares to think their pain is new. But you know, now it never is. The betrayer was never alone. He was simply the first to speak. What everyone else feared was true. You stop at the threshold where memory becomes future, and the Force moves through you not with demand, but with invitation. You could build again. You could lead. But now you know you will not do it with promises. You will do it with presence, with pause, with scars shown openly. You will not erase betrayal. You will make room for it, because it, too, is truth. You breathe deep. The air is cold, but your chest is warm. And in that warmth lives a fire that cannot be seen, only remembered. You walk forward, not to escape the past, but to become the answer that no one else was ready to speak. You open your eyes to a ceiling that pulses like the inside of a dying star. The sky is not sky, is a shell, translucent and trembling, filled with fractures that leak pale, silent light. You are inside the hollow star, a construct older than any temple, orbit, or myth. It does not drift through space. It exists in folded layers of time, hidden between seconds, invisible to the Force unless remembered by name. But that name has been buried, forgotten by design. Because the Sith who built this place did not want it found, they wanted it locked. Behind memory, you step forward. The ground beneath you rings like crystal and dusts your boots with fine ash, though nothing burns. This place was once bright, once brimming with motion. You can feel the echoes of feet rushing through corridors that no longer exist. The labyrinth unfolds around you not as a maze to solve, but as a sequence of forgetting. Each wall you pass hums with time denied. Doors do not lead forward, they lead inward. You begin to walk, not to explore, but to remember what has been erased. Symbols flicker across the walls, glyphs that only appear when ignored. Languages that write themselves when you refuse to look directly. The Sith did not build this place for defense. They built it to bury time itself, to lock away moments. Too volatile to remain in the stream of history. Not weapons, not prophecies, choices, regrets, alternate outcomes. Lives that should never have been. Each passage you enter tightens around your sense of continuity. It feels less and less like you are moving and more like you are being unwritten one step at a time. You pass through the chamber of first echoes. Inside, reflections drift through the air images of Sith you do not know, and yet you feel them inside you. Their faces flicker like candlelight, their gestures soft and reverent, as if they are apologizing to the future. You see one draw a sigil in the air, and the corridor behind her seals itself shut forever. Another whispers a name, and the ceiling above dissolves into silence. You walk among them, and they do not look at you. They are not aware. They are imprints memory, embalmed in gravity. You press onward. You enter a narrow corridor, lined with suspended masked siege, carved from stone that breathes. These are the faces of the unchosen Sith who, at the height of their transformation, chose not to ascend, not to rule, but to disappear. Their final thoughts echo from the masks in gentle pulses. I saw the end of the Force, and it wept for me. I stood before eternity and chose stillness. I broke my saber before it could break me. You do not wear a mask, but you bow to them, because you know every forgotten choice sustains the present more than a remembered war. The passage ahead darkens. You step through and feel time splinter. You stumble not from imbalance, but from chronology, slipping out of alignment. The hallway around you shifts shape. One moment it's stone, the next glass, then fire, then memory. You move through versions of yourself that never existed, versions that died young, versions that ruled galaxies, versions that never touched a saber. They do not haunt you, they guide you. You arrive in the atrium of lost futures, a domed chamber with no center, where time is displayed as art-frozen moments suspended in orbs of weightless gravity. You walk past them like exhibits in a museum built for no one. In one, you see a battle that never happened because a child once chose kindness. In another, a star system thrives because a Sith Lord surrendered to exile. In a third, you see yourself, old, quiet, surrounded by students who listen, not because you demand it, but because you forgot how to lie. These are not visions, they are exiles, realities removed and sealed away to prevent collapse. The Sith who built this labyrinth were not afraid of losing. They were afraid of too much victory, because too much victory leads to entropy, and so they removed their finest moments. They buried their best selves. to keep the galaxy balanced through omission. You fall to your knees, not in worship, in grief, because now you know greatness was never lost. It was hidden here to preserve a future that could never deserve it. The room dims. A path opens behind a veil of frozen thunder, and the labyrinth breathes again, not to stop you, but to see if you will continue. You rise slowly, breath tangled in the hush that follows revelation. The atrium fades behind you, walls folding like paper wet with memory. You do not look back. There is no direction in the labyrinth, only unfolding. The path before you curves like a question you already know the answer to, but dread remembering. The corridor hums beneath your feet, not a vibration, but a rhythm, as if your heartbeat is no longer yours, but borrowed from something ancient that dreamed in silence for too long. The hollow star watches. It does not judge, it catalogs. You walk into the archive of erased victories. The doorway sighs as you enter, shedding dust that glows like regret. This chamber is vast, circular, wrapped in rings of data, suspended mid-air. But they are not texts. They are moments sealed in loops of time, spinning slowly like stars caught in indecision. You move between them. One loop shows a war avoided by a single hand laid gently on a shoulder. Another shows an empire that crumbled because its ruler paused before giving the final order. These are not triumphs. They are the victories that would have unraveled the galaxy had they been allowed to persist. Each one was erased, not out of malice, out of mercy. You stop before a larger loop. It pulses as you near. Inside, you see yourself not as you are, but as you once hoped to be, peaceful, complete, surrounded by faces you cannot name but somehow miss. This version of you chose understanding over wrath, transparency over myth. They were loved. You ache, watching. But the loop flickers, then fades, as if even memory must let go. You ask no questions, because the answers here are too honest. You continue walking, stepping over glyphs that rearrange as you pass, spelling words only your body understands. Ahead lies the vault of non-time, where linearity is dissolved like bone in acid. You enter, and suddenly you are falling forward through events that never happened but still echo in your chest as truths. You see a Sith Lord weeping over the ruin of their own name. You see a Jedi and Sith sharing a fire in silence before battle, their sabers laid on the ground like exhausted beliefs. You see the Force itself, kneeling, whispering to a child who cannot hear it. You are not meant to witness these things. You are meant to carry them. The vault closes, and the passage reshapes. This time it leads downward, though gravity feels reluctant, like an old promise revisited. You descend into the cathedral of chosen absence. It is vast and hollow, its ceiling a dome of unlit stars. The floor is a mirror made of stillness. Here the Sith placed the things they could not destroy, truths, too radiant to be corrupted, too dangerous to be spoken. They did not hide them in vaults. They left them in silence. You walk the cathedral slowly. You pass a pedestal holding nothing but the space above it thrums like the last breath of something divine. You pass a sculpture that appears only in your peripheral vision, a shape your eyes refuse to translate. At the far end of the hall is a single chair, simple, stone, empty. You sit, and immediately you are submerged in memory, not your own. The hollow star reveals its origin. It was never meant to exist within space. It was forged in the pause between 2 seconds, when a Sith Lord reached the pinnacle of perception and realized that time itself could not contain what was coming. So they built the labyrinth not to preserve themselves, but to displace their destiny. They placed their greatest insights, their most dangerous clarity, into walls that no one would ever willingly seek, because clarity requires surrender, and surrender is the final form of strength. You open your eyes, still seated, still held by silence. The cathedral does not offer praise, it offers permission. You stand, and the mirror beneath you cracks, not from weight, from transformation. You exit the chamber and enter a corridor filled with rain that falls upward, each droplet reflecting a different failure you've made. But this time, you do not look away. You walk through it slowly, letting it soak your skin with understanding. You arrive at a sealed door. It bears your name, not the one you use, the one beneath, the name you were before you chose the path. You place your hand upon it. It opens without sound, revealing a chamber with no floor, no ceiling, only threads of starlight wrapped in spirals, orbiting a central void. This is the core of the hollow star, where time is kept asleep, where reality is reminded of its own illusion. You float forward, guided by intuition older than desire. At the center hovers a single spark. It is the moment forgotten, a shard of reality so potent it was excised from all timelines. You reach out, and it lets you hold it, not to use, to remember, and in that moment you see it all. Every version of the galaxy, every version of you, every war that didn't happen, every peace that didn't hold, and above it all, the Force waiting always to see what you would choose next. You do not release the spark. It releases you, slowly, gently, like a hand lifting from your shoulder after a long silence. You remain suspended in the core of the hollow star, surrounded by spirals of truth, too vast to wear, too soft to command. Time does not return all at once. It filters in like smoke, threading itself back into your breath, wrapping itself loosely around your form like an old robe worn once in ritual. You are no longer who entered, and yet you are more you than you have ever been, not empowered, not exalted, simply allowed. The threads of starlight drift apart, their orbit widening, dimming, becoming still once more. The spark recedes into the void, no longer needing to hide, no longer afraid of being remembered. You drift backward, and the chamber lowers you onto a floor you cannot see, but that knows your name. Behind you, the door you entered has vanished. Ahead, a corridor unfolds, not with urgency, but with welcome. You walk. Each step returns gravity to your limbs, voice to your breath, weight to your purpose. The walls here are no longer shifting. They are steady, stable. This part of the labyrinth was built for exit, not erasure. The Sith who designed this passageway knew that some would return from the depths, not whole, but refined. You feel their will brushing against your skin in echoes. They are not watching, they are remembering. You pass murals that appear blank at first, until you stop looking for meaning. Then the shapes emerge, spirals of faces stitched together in mutual forgetting, hands outstretched not to beg, but to let go. One mural weeps, though no figure is present. You understand why. Some truths must be carried, not told. The corridor. opens into a chamber that breathes, yes, breathes. It exhales the dust of forgotten rituals and inhales the quiet strength of decision. This is the threshold, the final chamber. It contains no test, only presence. In the center floats a structure that is not a door, not a portal, not a passage, but all of these. It shifts with your heartbeat. It waits for your acceptance. You approach. You place your palm upon its edge. It asks no question. It offers no resistance. It opens, and you walk through. There is light, but not illumination, just clarity. The hollow star has brought you back to the edge of what can be touched, where the labyrinth ends and the galaxy begins again. You stand now beneath stars that seem closer than before, as though they, too, passed through some interior trial. The surface beneath your feet is smooth, as if polished by the passage of time itself. You breathe in and the force does not return to you. It leans forward. It listens, because you carry something now, not a power, a possibility. You have seen the truths too great to be preserved in archives, too sacred to survive in doctrine. You know that time is not a river, but a mirror cracked again and again by the hands of those who believed they were sculpting destiny. You know the Sith buried their best selves, not to be forgotten, but to give the galaxy a chance to stumble into balance without being led. You begin to walk away from the hollow star, away from the labyrinth, but not away from the memory. It lingers, humming gently through your steps, brushing the edges of your thoughts, settling into the space behind your breath. You will not speak of it, not because you fear disbelief, but because no telling could hold the shape of what you now carry. Ahead, the galaxy stretches outward like a wound learning to sing. You feel the weight of futures pressing softly on your skin, asking for nothing but awareness. You reach the edge of a ridge. Below, cities you once knew glitter in their ignorance. Ships move between systems, still convinced they are making history, and for a moment you do not smile. You simply close your eyes and say nothing, because the greatest truths are not taught, they are remembered when the need is deepest. You sit, and the hollow star dims behind you, folding back into silence. It will remain hidden again until another soul forgets itself deeply enough to deserve its shape. You exhale, and in that breath, time stirs, truth settles, and the force whispers, well remembered. You arrive beneath a moon that sings, not a melody of joy, not a lament, but a vibration so pure it feels like a hand cupping the soul. The light above is fractured, silver bruised with red, pulsing softly in rhythm with something buried far beneath your feet. You are not here by map. You were drawn called by a note too old for frequency, too sacred for syllables. This is the resting place of the choir, and its song does not echo through stone or sky. It echoes through you. The ground is wet with ash and memory. You kneel and touch it. It trembles like flesh to long starved of touch. You feel names not spoken, but felt, carved into the bedrock by voices that once held the force in harmony, not opposition. This is not a battlefield. It is a stage, and every stone beneath you was once a voice in the choir of Sith who refused, the scream who turned darkness into something gentle, who sang not to conquer but to remember. You descend. The mouth of the tomb is not hidden. It yawns in plain sight, lined with teeth of fossilized song. Your body leans forward without permission, your breath aligning with the tempo that surrounds you now. The deeper you go, the quieter the world becomes, not silent, but listening, as if everything around you is waiting for you to understand that you are not alone, that something has been singing through your blood since you first touched fear. Torches flicker without flame, walls breathe without sound. You are inside the temple of resonance, and it does not care for titles. Sith, Jedi, heretic, prophet, all have stood where you now stand. All heard the song, few understood it, fewer still sang back. Ahead, a chamber opens. It is not large, but it contains more history than any archives. At its center floats a crystal knot kyber, not synthetic, something older, shaped by emotion, not pressure. It spins slowly, casting shadows that hum. You sit before it, and the floor pulses once beneath you. Then the choir begins. You hear them, not with ears, with memory. A low harmony, thick with sorrow, but precise in its beauty. It is the kind of sound that reveals rather than distracts. You close your eyes, and the chamber becomes sky. A field of figures, some robed, some armored, some naked, as beliefs stand in rings around a pulsing core of light. They do not sing words, they sing experiences. Each note is a moment, a betrayal, a forgiveness, a question left unanswered too long. You see one step forward. Her voice is blue, not metaphorically. Her voice is literally color, wrapping around your ribs like water laced with lightning. She sings her confession, not of failure, but of fear. Fear of losing herself in devotion. Fear of becoming a name remembered, but never understood. The note sustains, then fades. Another joins, then another. You realize the choir was never a ritual. It was a sanctuary, a place for Sith who could no longer scream to hum instead. They were not weak, they were exhausted, exhausted from centuries of power soaked in blood, exhausted from carrying wisdom through blades. They sang to hold the truth without shattering it. You reach forward and place your fingers on the crystal, and for a moment you are one of them. You see your face, Shungar, untouched by betrayal, still full of wonder. You see the first time you lied, the first time you realized truth was too fragile for war. And you see the choice, scream or sing. You chose silence, but now the song finds you again. The chamber dims, you stand, and the walls part without sound. A corridor of resonance opens before you, every step tuned to a different memory, not your own. You walk, and each note brushes your skin like breath shaped by sorrow. You do not resist, because now you understand. The Sith were never just anger. They were mourning, refined, given voice. You keep walking. The choir waits. You move deeper into the corridor, and each footstep is swallowed, not by stone, but by song. The walls do not echo your passage. They absorb it, tuning each movement into vibration, as if the temple must first learn you before it may reveal more. The deeper you go, the more you feel stripped not of body, but of armor woven from habit and name. The song is not a melody. It is memory, liquefied and folded into rhythm. The Sith who built this place did not seek purity. They sought resonance. And now you begin to vibrate. The corridor opens into a great hall. No lights, no flame, only glowing threads suspended from the ceiling, trailing down like luminous roots. Each one sings, low, patient, ancient. They do not harmonize. They collide, softly conflicting notes, brushing together, like hands that once struck, but now linger in longing. This is not discord. This is complexity, made sacred. You step beneath the threads, and they begin to react. One thread drapes across your shoulder. It sings the sound of your hesitation. Another curls near your hand. It hums your forgotten kindness. The entire chamber is a mirror, not of form, but of tone. You begin to weep, not from sadness, from recognition. You feel yourself remembered in ways you've never admitted. A figure moves in the far end of the chamber, cloaked not in fabric, but in sound. Her form is slender, wavering like heat above stone. She turns to you, and her face is a shifting melody. No eyes, no mouth, only notes sculpted into shape. She does not speak. She sings, and through her song you understand. She was the first voice of the dying moon, long before the Sith fractured into doctrine and war. She wandered the void, listening for frequencies in the force others ignored. Where others felt power, she heard tone. Where others broke, she harmonized. She built this place not as sanctuary, but as storage, a cathedral, for the emotions that could not survive in the hierarchy of fire and blade. She walks toward you, and her melody begins to wrap around your spine. You fall to your knees, not in submission, in readiness. She places her hand on your chest, not in touch, but in tone, and you are opened, not wounded, resonated. A column of sound rises from within you, filled with every moment you swallowed to survive, the betrayal you justified, the friend you outgrew, the silence you wrapped around your pain. They emerge in tone, and she sings them back to you, transformed. The sound becomes a loop between you, not healing, integrating. You rise, and the threads above glow brighter. You are allowed to enter the next chamber, the choir hall. You expect majesty. Instead, you find a circle of broken instruments, harps without strings, flutes sealed with wax, drums made of silence, and around them echoes, not ghosts, impressions. You walk through them, and each one sings, not to impress, to confess. They sing the last truths they were never allowed to say. One sings, "I loved my master, but I watched him fall and said nothing." Another, "I let my enemy live because I saw my own childhood in his eyes." Another, "I destroyed the world that gave me peace just to feel remembered." Each voice joins the next, and the room fills, until the ceiling begins to drip with sound, so heavy it curls into mist. You sit in the center of the room and listen, because that is all that is required here. Not action, not redemption, just resonance. You begin to hum, not a song you know, but one your marrow remembers. The threads from the earlier chamber drift in a wrap around your throat, not to choke, but to tune, and you sing, softly, without words, and the room answers. The instruments repair themselves, not with magic, with tone. Strings pull taut, flutes breathe again, drums open, and the choir returns. One by one, they form around you, not physical, not illusion, but presence carved from accumulated honesty. They nod and sing with you. Together, you create a song of forgetting, not to erase, but to forgive. You feel lighter, not because anything was taken, but because everything was allowed to be. You rise, and they open the final path. The door ahead is shaped like a mouth half opened, forever deciding whether to scream or sing. You pass through, and the light beyond is not light, it is listening. You step into the final chamber, and all noise ceases. Not a silence of emptiness, but of arrival. You have passed through sound, through confession, through the warmth of resonance, and the ache of memory. Now the quiet welcomes you, like a final note held too long, trembling on the edge of fading. The floor is smooth, soft beneath your feet, as if worn by centuries of soft tread. Above, the ceiling curves inward, vast and silver-veined, and the dying moon's light pours through it in slow spirals, like breath inhaled through sacred stone. This is the dome of stillness, the place where the choir ended itself, not in death, but in decision. They came here not to be entombed, but to become inaudible, so that only those who had walked the path of echo could hear what was left. No markers, no names, only a single plinth in the center of the dome, carved not of stone, but of frequency hardened by intention. You approach, and the plinth begins to resonate. It does not hum, it pulses with your song, not the one you sang aloud, the one you've always carried the vibration beneath your choices, beneath your silences, beneath every scream you swallowed. You place your hand upon the plinth, and the dome begins to breathe. Light bends, walls tremble, and the choir returns, not as ghosts, as frequency, as flame molded into voice. They rise around you in waves, dozens, hundreds, each one cloaked in forgotten tones, voices rich with emotion never weaponized. They do not chant, they do not demand. They begin to sing the final song, a song written not in sound, but in release. They show you a Sith Lord who buried her blade and chose to heal, a war halted by a single shared dream whispered in chorus, a moment when the dark side itself paused to weep for what had been lost in its name. And then they offer you the melody. You hesitate, because the melody does not promise power, it promises memory. You open your mouth and let it move through you, no language, no pitch, only resonance. The choir does not accompany, they dissolve, one by one. Each note offered returns to silence, and in doing so, becomes permanent, until only you remain, alone, singing a song that no one will hear, because it was never meant for ears, only for the moment before action, the moment before choice, when sound becomes decision and silence becomes truth. You finish the song, and the plinth dims. The light above ceases to spiral. The moon's face hardens, and the dome begins to close. Not behind you, around you, but you do not resist. You sit and breathe, and the choir breathes with you. You are not their successor, you are their last. Note, you feel your body soften, your thoughts stretch, your name loosen in your bones like a robe slipping from tired shoulders, and then silence, the kind that only comes after something is finally understood, the kind that echoes without sound, the kind that makes the force pause and bow. Above, the moon begins to fade. It no longer needs to sing. Its work is done. You have heard what was buried, and now the galaxy will feel the presence of one who no longer needs to speak in fire, because some Sith chose to whisper, and in doing so became eternal.